So I have some stories in the digital rights vein and pertaining to net neutrality and what's going on at the FCC, because we are going to see some transitions in the FCC. These could be some good things. First of all, there was a very, very beautiful moment, and a lot of people were retweeting this beauty. I retweeted it myself, and it was the beauty that happened when Ajit Pai's Twitter account no longer was in existence because he deleted it. He is just the FCC. He is no longer FCC chair. He stepped down. Ajit Pai was, for anyone not in the know, Ajit Pai was appointed actually by Barack Obama. Barack Obama brought him into the fold in the first place, and then Trump appointed him FCC head. During his tenure as FCC head, they repealed net neutrality, which we have been fighting tooth and nail since, and hopefully we're going to win that one. But they have repealed net neutrality, and everything he's done was basically a disaster. Here's a summary of one of those things. Free Press tweeted this out and wrote this summary that we're going to check out. They say, Ajit Pai is gone, but his terrible decisions at the FCC are still making waves. The latest, Pai's efforts to support rural broadband have put rural town Plainfield, Massachusetts fiber network at risk. So basically, we're going to look into like the nitty gritty of this from Free Press. My understanding of a lot of this was, they invested in this so-called rural broadband, but what it really was just a giveaway to a bunch of these cable companies. And there was a bunch of red tape, so it didn't actually help consumers. But here's the details on this. Plan fail, how Pai imperiled a rural town's fiber network. This is from our friends over at Free Press. So this is part 5 in an ongoing series. Now, the previous post, they laid it out where fiber to the clubhouse, Pai subsidizes broadband for the rich, broadband boondoggle, Ajit Pai's $886 million gift to Elon Musk, because he's in need. SpaceX broadband coming to an empty traffic island near you, and Ajit Pai's broadband legacy, haste and waste. So this guy had a long history it was 4 years, but he basically throughout his tenure just had all these misleading
disasters
directives saying, oh, this is helping rural broadband, this is helping close the digital divide. In reality, it was just a giveaway to the rich. All right, so Free Press co-founder and COO Kimberly Longley is someone you want to have on your side. She helped build our organization, this is Free Press saying this, from an idea on paper to the force it is today. And that's just her day job. In her spare time, she organized a municipal project to bring fiber internet to her town of Plainfield, Massachusetts. So she's fighting for actual fiber internet. I wouldn't mind getting her on the show because that's what I'm trying to do in my town is get actual municipal internet. And it's been an uphill battle, as you know, Krish. Mm-hmm. So turning a wish and a need into a reality required a substantial amount of work beyond the endless hours spent in meetings. Building a fiber network requires accurate knowledge of where all the potential customer locations are and getting enough of those people to sign up. Meaning if you want a municipal broadband project to work, you need people who want that in their homes, who want to sign up, who want to become customers and get their internet from the city. Longley and a team of local volunteers literally drove all of the roads and back roads in her town to map the area and understand the potential customer base, a necessary step that many winners of subsidies from the FCC's world, blah, 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 blah. All right, so they built the infrastructure, they got the broadband. On February 13th, 2020, the FCC granted final approval to Westfield G&E to receive subsidies from the Connect America Fund, which it had won in a reverse auction that commenced in July of 2018. Of the $10.3 million awarded to Westfield G&E, Plainfield Broadband will receive subsidies totaling $430,686 over a 10-year period. But less than a year after the FCC approved the $10.3 million to CAF to help pay for the cost of Plainfield Broadband, the agency awarded $9.4 million of RDOF subsidies to Charter to overbuild these taxpayer-funded networks. So in other words, they had this approval, the FCC approved this money that was going to help Plainfield Broadband, but they also ended up doing was they gave all this money to Charter, to big cable, to crush the city network. You see what they did there? They gave $9.4 million to crush the city network, which they knew would then make internet costs higher for all the residents of that place. So they crushed the city network under the guise of helping them, and instead gave all this money to big cable. Just so everyone, so that's what happened here. So,
which is something that they've done that kind of stuff for years. Like I remember reading when small towns try to get fiber and they want to run it through, cable companies can just buy a square mile of land, and like some of these smaller internet companies don't have the money to dig and go around. Like that's way more money and way more cable to put down, and that's just a way that that's a legal way for some of these bigger cable companies to just block things like fiber. And and it's complete, and people are just like, yeah, it's competitive, they're competing. It's
it's the opposite. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Here, I want to read the last paragraph here. Wait, where did I? So why is the FCC subsidizing Charter? This is from the article. To overbuild in Plainfield and other rural Massachusetts towns. As we show below, it's because of former FCC chairman Ajit Pai's mismanagement. Pai never missed a chance to pat himself on the back for things he didn't actually accomplish, and he failed to get the details right in this essential FCC program. Now, one small thing I would say, I don't think it's that he failed. I think it's a little more deceptive than that. I think he knew what he was doing. And he wanted to help big cable and screw over the city in the process, and he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think a guy like Ajit Pai would do something haphazardly. I think he has a plan and how he wants to go about doing things. Like I think he had a plan to get rid of net neutrality.
Absolutely. He said it was his first priority when he got the gig.
Yeah, and none of the stuff that he does is by accident. Like he's such a weird megalomaniacal like sociopath that comes off as this goofy, like, oh, aren't I just a little crazy? Like I got a big oversized mug and I do videos on the internet, aren't I? Like, and
those
then
videos were so cringe though.
They're awful.
Those videos where he was like, what can you do without net neutrality? Everything you used to do. And then he's just doing these goofy things. It's like, what?
But all of it is just shopping for shit.
Like that's all he does.
It's 2.5 minutes of like, you can still buy Star Wars toys, and it's like, please don't ruin Star Wars more than it already has. Like, come on.
And then there were those goofy outtakes where it's like him, like just standing, and then he was so condescending in some of his things. He's like, I'm so tired of it. It's gonna be fine. It's like, well, why are you? If it's not going to change anything, why are you repealing it? What's the problem? Obviously, these big cable companies want to do something. Obviously, they want to roll out anti-net neutrality packages. It's like saying, hey, nobody's going to murder anybody, so we're just going to do away with laws against murder. We're just going to do away with those laws, because would you murder somebody? I wouldn't. So why do we need these laws? Like, obviously, people saying something like that probably have some not so great plans.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we don't need these laws protecting a free and open internet. We don't need these laws saying you can't discriminate on content and stuff. So let's just do away with them. Why would the big cable companies mess with that? Gee, I don't know. Why did they take it to court to not have to follow it in the first place? Because there's no money to be made for them to screw people over. I mean, it's so.
And he stood by Section 230. It was like, yay. Like, this is a good thing. Like
repealing it. I mean, well, so we're going to go there next. So here's what's going on at the FCC now. Here's kind of where we're at. Biden appointed as far as I know, it's a temporary, like the acting chair. I don't know if he's going to make her the permanent chair. If he has, I have not seen that yet. I have only seen and I looked. So if it's out there, I've missed it, and I have looked for it, but did not find it. But as of the recording of this, to my knowledge, she is the acting chair. I do not have any information that he's making her the permanent chair. But it's Jessica Rosenworcel. And she has a pretty good track record. So here's an article from Popular Science. The FCC is about to undergo a huge shift that could drastically affect the internet. And they kind of break down what's going on. So Ajit Pai stepped down. Yeah. Now, here's what's going on. So The acting chair is Jessica Rosenworcel, which is say that name 5 times fast, bet you can. But she is a net neutrality advocate. She has, fought to close the digital divide. She has a pretty good track record as far as an FCC appointee. I don't know every single thing about her. I don't know much about her personal politics. You don't really need to. As far as an FCC appointee goes, are they going to vote the right way when it comes to digital rights issues? And if they are, cool. Right. And she has a pretty good record of doing that. So he stepped down, Ajit Pai being the he. So he stepped down, and now she's the acting chair. Now, here's where the FCC's at, though. It's not like, oh, she's the acting chair, so that's good because she's for net neutrality and all these other issues, and he was on the wrong side. She's not. It is good that she's the acting chair, but here's the deal. The FCC right now is at a 2-2 split because there was that Trump guy that stepped down because he was like, hey, I'm crazy, but not this crazy. And he stepped down. So Trump was like, well, here's this Symington guy. He's willing to go along with all my crazy ideas. By the way, I don't know how technology works. And Symington was like, I don't either. I'm totally unqualified for this job. Appoint me. And everyone said
it worked for the post office, right? Louis DeJoy had nothing to do with the post office, and he was like, "This guy, he's the postmaster general."
Well, that's one of many examples. What does Betsy DeVos know about education?
Right, exactly.
And it's not just Trump that does this or Republicans. Democrats do it too.
Yeah,
they actually appoint people who are the opposite of what they're supposed to. Oh, let's appoint someone to labor who is anti-union. Let's So this guy gets appointed. So now the FC is at a 2-2 deadlock, meaning that there's 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, 2 who would vote against net neutrality, 2 who would vote for it. And Biden is going to appoint a 5th member. And I don't know if that 5th member he will appoint chair or if he'll keep Jessica Rosen as the chair. And then just appoint a 5th member. It's not clear as of right now, but he needs to appoint somebody else because they're at a 2-2 deadlock. So what does this mean for these different issues? So first, net neutrality. They repealed net neutrality in 2017. Now, some groups, this is according to the article, some groups believe that the upcoming net neutrality actions could go beyond reinstating the Obama-era rules. It could mean an end to practices like zero rating, which allows providers to exclude their own services or those from companies that pay them a fee from data caps. In other words, hey, if you use this video streaming service we have, it won't go against your data cap, but these other video services, they would. So they're going to try to push these other video services out of existence. Then they have a monopoly. Then they can prioritize content or try to get away with it, which is anti-net neutrality. You see how that works. Ending practices like zero rating would put an end to that. And where did that spark up first? No pun intended with spark there. It sparked up first in our California net neutrality bill. In California's net neutrality bill, it includes an end to zero rating, which means that those net neutrality protections go even further than what we got during the Obama era. So that's what's going on there. Now, the digital divide. But of course, we don't get this until we have that 5th appointee who would vote for net neutrality. Digital divide. The FCC has long stated its goal to bring broadband access to everyone in this country. The Democratic and Republican sides typically have very different takes, different ideas on how to accomplish this task. Now, they did $3.2 billion into broadband development. But again, you see how when you have someone like Ajit Pai calling the shots, this ends up just being a scam. And sometimes the promises of rural broadband are, to some extent, scams themselves. I mean, sometimes it does help get people connected to the internet who weren't otherwise, which, of course, that's a good thing. But here's what they also do. A lot of times when you see people in government say they're for rural broadband, but they're not for, say, high-speed internet for all or municipal broadband everywhere in the country, what they're really saying is, we're okay with building internet infrastructure in the places where the cable companies don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. What the cable companies do, they have an organized duopoly where they don't infringe on each other's territories, and they price gouge consumers. That's why we get shittier internet at a shittier price than a lot of other countries. So if it's a place where cable companies feel like there's not enough people here where we can make the type of money we want to make, they don't go there. So they don't give a shit what happens there. So what you'll see the government do at times is they'll go, here's a ton of money, way more than you need, to build here, and you can go build here and then do whatever you want. So you see stuff like that happening. But if you have an FCC that's actually committed to real broadband investment, that could be a good thing. And, again, Jessica Rosenworcel has a much better track record than Ajit Pai, much better. There's no comparison. Now, they're saying that there could be less commercial consolidation, and they bring up Section 230. That's the other one we'll go to here, and regulating big tech. So in May of 2020, here's the summary they give. A Trump executive order dragged the FCC into a nationwide debate regarding Section 230, which protects websites and platforms from legal action based on content stemming from their users. It's what prevents people from suing Facebook when others tweet something horrible about them. The executive order, so here's what was in Trump's executive order. The executive order asked the FCC to clarify the kinds of content that platforms can moderate. So basically, you have these social media platforms abusing their powers by acting like publishers, basically. Trump's executive order was like, well, let's just transfer that power over to the FCC. So basically, government bureaucrats can just decide whatever they want based on who's in power. And then we're just going to strip this Section 230, which applies to everybody on the internet, not just social media platforms. It also applies to user comments on like a news article. So repealing Section 230 is not a good idea. And we have talked about this tirelessly on the show about why that is. It's basically like saying, hey, there's a rotten tree in this forest. Let's just burn down the entire forest.
Right. Yeah.
or it's like you come to the hospital with a broken arm, they set you on fire. It's just one of the, well, technically you don't have a broken arm anymore, but so here's the thing. Now, near the end of his tenure, Pai said he wasn't going forward with any efforts to impose rules that could change the overall efficacy of Section 230. Now, with Trump out of office, it seems extremely unlikely that the FCC will have much, if anything, to do with Section 230 conversations going forward. Both Rosenworcel and Starks have said publicly that the FCC shouldn't have anything connected to 230, even if talk of repealing it comes up again in the future. So I think overall that's a good thing that they're just saying, like, we shouldn't be doing this. This is not a proper ask from Trump. He's demonstrating he doesn't really understand what exactly Section 230 is, which I think so many of them have. I mean, when you hear, it's so funny. There was this time where Ted Cruz was talking about Section 230, and he was like grandstanding. He was like, this is about blah, blah, blah. And then a couple paragraphs under, they explained why Ted Cruz just doesn't understand what he's talking about. They're like he just doesn't. That's not what it does. People think that Section 230 is just shield for social media companies. That's not exactly what it is. I mean, that's like saying, well, free speech laws are just shields for views that you don't like or something like that. Well, no, free speech laws are free speech laws that apply to everybody. So, when we have issues, we don't end free speech laws. What we do instead is we have additional policy. Like there's certain types of speech that aren't protected. You can't defame somebody without potential consequence. You can't incite violence. There are specific things that are not protected speech. That's the same thing that should happen here. You shouldn't repeal Section 230, which basically assures free speech on the internet and allows people to put stuff on the internet. You shouldn't repeal that. Instead, what you should do is you should have new policy that meets the moment and says, look, when you're a huge social media platform, you either A, have to follow the free speech of the United States, or better yet, we make these things public utilities.
Would changing something like that to a public utility, I don't know how that would affect it on a global scale, but it would regulate them a lot more. They wouldn't be able to regulate free speech themselves, which is what they've been doing. But that's the thing is, so if the FCC isn't gonna be in charge of Section 230, does that mean that Congress is going to be in charge of, like, will they be able to bring this back up? Like, if Ted Cruz is like, we should repeal, like, would they be able to try to write a letter? Which, again, would be like, what do these dinosaurs really know about?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, yeah,
industry?
there's already been like alternative bills and propositions out there, and none of them. I mean, I haven't seen anything that I really feel meets the moment, but yeah, I mean, it could just be an alternative policy proposal or something like that. But I mean, right now, I'm hoping they just leave it alone.
Yeah, just leave it alone.
Leave Section 230 alone, and instead focus on new types of policy that we need to meet this moment. I mean, look, and again, this is another theme that I say on the show all the time. We are in a moment where technology has passed up where our laws are at. We don't have laws to meet this moment, and it's time to explore what those new types of policies should be for the benefit of internet users and creators and everyone in between. So
we needed that when everything with Cambridge Analytica was revealed. That should have been the moment where we were like, oh shit, technology has surpassed our we need to figure out how to adapt our laws to meet with technological advances, because they basically proved that an American billionaire paid a company in the UK to use psychographics to try to manipulate people to vote for Trump. And that was like far more nefarious than, the Russiagate conspiracies that were pushed for 4 years. And that story got swept under the rug, right? There were people like us were talking about it, but you didn't hear Rachel Maddow say anything about it. You didn't hear anything from corporate media because they don't give a shit, and they would rather peddle like some conspiracy theory. I think at that point, once you figured out that Facebook willingly let Cambridge Analytica do this sort of stuff, you should have figured out a way to regulate these big tech giants, and you wouldn't have seen all of the demonetization and the control of free speech on the internet. Like 2 years ago, there were like 800 independent media organizations that just were blinked out on Facebook and Twitter. Like, that wouldn't have happened if they legislated to regulate these companies. Like, they just give you a vague.
That's the thing. They have entirely too much power, and that's something that people across political ideologies all agree on. It's like, they have entirely too much power, and people are trying to come up with the answer of how to rein that in. And what's also very frustrating is that these platforms could be doing more on their own. Mm-hmm. There's nothing stopping them because, terms of service and conditions are apparently, gospel, right now. Like Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg, their terms of condition, that is the ultimate, like, that's what you got to follow. So there's actually nothing stopping these companies from being like, okay, we're just going to follow the free speech laws of the United States, and we're going to appoint these people to make sure that happen. These are, they could appoint lawyers and constitutional scholars and professionals to be like, okay, if you violate the free speech laws of the United States on our platform, that is the only way you could ever get banned or deplatformed, and you will get a proper explanation as to what you did. And you can fight it in court should you choose to. But we have professionals that specialize in free speech laws. They're going to be able to bring up the receipts saying what it is you are allegedly guilty of. They could do that. They're not going to, but they could. I mean, there's nothing to stop them from doing that. And with the repeal of Section 230, there would be nothing to stopping them from just censoring everything. I mean, that's the thing a lot of people miss when they say that they're for the repeal of Section 230. No, repealing Section 230 would lead to more censorship. They would be censoring a lot more, because now they're just not going to want to have to worry about a lawsuit. So just anything, I mean, they could change their terms of service to be like, oh, any political content, we just don't want it. We're just going to flag it all, unless it comes from one of the cable networks.
Right, exactly. I mean, so, they could, It just becomes, like a handing them power on a silver tray. And we already saw, Twitter and Facebook abuse that power anyway when they took Trump off of it. And then it was like, you saw how it kind of worked its way down, where like Ron Paul was taken off of Facebook for no reason. They just said, hey, something you said violated a community standard. And he's like, what? What did I say? And he got nothing, right? It was the same thing when my entire podcast got deleted by Spotify. They just gave me a vague copyright claim. And when I tried to figure out what that was, they just deleted everything. That's just sort of the way that they operate. And now you want to repeal something that's going to give them more power to just do that, but who's championing it are the people that just don't want to see differences of opinion, or rather, more or less, the people that don't know how to communicate with differences of opinion. Like if there's a progressive or a conservative that you disagree with, instead of having some civil discourse with them and asking questions and actually debating with them, they just don't want to see it. These are the people that like will pop up on Twitter. I get this like once a week where somebody will comment on Twitter and before I can see it, they will block me. So I have no idea what they say.
Yeah, they just block you. Or if you respond, they just block you right away.
They just block me right away too. Yeah.
Or it's like they just they just block you right away. Mark Maron said something about trolls recently that I actually really, really liked. And I'm not saying anyone who disagrees with somebody is automatically a troll. I mean, some people, they actually are looking to have a discussion of ideas, and that's totally fine. But, other people, they're just trolling, and Mark Maron said this thing on his podcast where he was just like, I think every troll is just secretly in love with you. And it was, I mean, he did a whole bit like, so I don't, but it was, I don't know, it was kind of funny. And you kind of just like I remember just kind of laughing and being like, yeah, I feel that like that's cool.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make